Wanted to continue and make a video about helpful tools in studying the Bible, putting together this online Pentateuch class, and wanted to give some resources that I use and some tools that you may find helpful as well. What I want to talk about today is something you can do whenever you come to an Old Testament passage. If you'll do this, sometimes it will really help you, and that is to look at the meaning of names. Now, when you're coming to the Hebrew text and the Greek text for that matter, all the names, place names, and people names in the Bible, all of them are actually meaningful words in the language. And so sometimes it can be very helpful to look at what those words are. And I want to look at 4 examples: Eve, Abel, Sinai, and Moriah. And to do this, you'll need some kind of computer program, either Logos or Accordance. And we'll just start with Accordance here. And this is a great example. We are in Genesis 3:20, and it says, the Adam called the name of his wife Chava. It's kind of hard to say for Westerners, because she hatad, she became the mother of all chai, of all living. And so you can see Chava and chai are related. Chaya is the verb to live. And so if we were native Hebrew speakers, we would hear this word and we would connect it with the word life. Now, what's very interesting in this passage, and I'll just take myself out of the way here, is when we look at the word Chava, you can see in the English that it just gives the word Eve. And Eve is probably as close as we can get in Western speaking culture to pronouncing what the name sounds like. But notice that in the Septuagint, they actually translate what Chava means as Zoe, life. And so the Septuagintal writers recognized what we all should recognize, in that these words have meaning. Now, the Septuagint doesn't always do that. Sometimes they'll transliterate the name on. They're trying Hava. I guess that's as close as they could get to the sound, but they're recognizing the principle that we're seeing here. Is these words actually mean something, and so it's literarily important when you realize that the tree of life is Zoe's tree. And so you wonder if there's like something going on in terms of the meta-narrative, some kind of helpful thing for us as interpreters to think about. So very important text, and looking up the meanings of names, it's going to help us. Now, when we come to 4, let me switch over to Logos. In Logos, if we do that same research, we can come to the word Eve here, and we can do a Bible word study. And if we do that, very helpful thing, the Logos will help us say the word out loud.
Hava, Hava,
Very nice feature there. And it will tell us related words, possible related words. And if I can just float this panel, you can see if it comes from the root chaya, alive, be alive, all kinds of life connected words. Also, in terms of the lexica, you have life there. So, looking up the meanings of the word, it may be helpful. And you come to, say, John 1, and it says, in him was Zoe, and the Zoe was the light of men. You wonder, is John picking up on that? Is he reading a kind of meta-narrative interpretation in terms of the meaning of names? So one of the things we'll always want to do when we study is, if we can, we can't be sure always, but if we can, to try to figure out what the names mean. Now, a second one is this word Abel. So if we go back to, let's go back to accordance for this. The Adam, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes Adam's called Adam and sometimes he's called the Adam. You're not supposed to put the word the with a proper name in Hebrew. And so is it being treated as a proper name? Why is the word the there sometimes and sometimes it's not? We'll have to leave that for another day, but it's interesting. And the Adam knew Chava, his wife, and she conceived and she bore Cain. And she said, I have kanitied, and you can probably see that Cain and kaniti are related. So however you want to translate the word, it's the same word in Proverbs 8:22 when it talks about God and wisdom. Translated in ESV, I have gained. A man can mean by, probably not an appropriate meaning here, but you can see that Cain's name, whatever it is some kind of very positive meaning. We'll have to leave for another day rabbinic discussion and how the Targum translates this at Adonai, whether they're reading as definite direct object mark or as the word with. Very interesting reading in the Targums. We'll leave that for another day. But the connection, Cain's name with like I have gotten or I have gained or I have acquired, it's almost as if Cain's name means something like God's gift. Like this boy who's born is like God's gift. He's the one that Eve thinks will be the seed of the woman to crush the serpent's head. I imagine in the story that's how it's going. But what's really interesting is when we get to his brother, she again conceived his brother, Habel. And you can see Abel is how the Septuagintal translators do it. So if we want to know what that word means, we could go to the lexica and see what the opinions of scholars are. But the best way to do it is actually look up how the word's used elsewhere in Scripture. And this is very easy to do with these computer programs. Here, if we go to the letters and just type in Hebel, you can see it's giving us different options. and make sure I've got it spelled right. If we go here and hit return, it should pull up a lot of passages for us. That's not normally the way this works. Let's see where it takes us here. So it's going through all the ones in Genesis 4. In 2 Kings, there's a use here. And you can see they went after Hahebel. And you can see, here I can make this a little bigger, take myself out here. You can see that the word Hahebel is being translated false idols. And you can see in the Septuagint it's empty. Let's see, this is a adjective, so empty things. Isaiah 37, Egypt's health is worthless, and you can see again Septuagint. Isaiah 49:4. Let's see where it is. It's here. I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for tohu. Now that's interesting because that's one of the words in Genesis 1, tohu vabohu, without form and void. I've spent my strength for nothing, and hebel, and so it's being translated vanity there. And here in Jeremiah 2:5, thus says the Lord, what did your fathers find in me evil, that they went far away from upon me? They went after Ha-Hebel. You can see it's being translated worthlessness. And we could read through all these. It's similar things. If we just pick one at random, here it is, empty consolation. Psalm 39:5 in English, 39:6. Let's see where it is. It's right here. My lifetime is as nothing before you. Surely all mankind stands as Hebel. All Adam, notice there, as Hebel, a mere breath. Let's see this one. Here it is. When you discipline a man with rebukes for sin, you consume like a moth what is dear to him. Surely all mankind is breath. So it's being translated breath there. Oh, and this is a favorite one. The sons of Adam, and so that's really interesting. The sons of Adam, surely they are Hebel. And the ESV is doing those of high estate. They're doing Ish as like noble. I don't know. I go back and forth whether that's the case or not, but it's certainly a possibility. But empty breath are the sons of Adam. The sons of Ish, in a balance is to go up. They are together less than Hebel. And I think it has to mean something like breath there. 78:33. It is their days. It is completed in Hebel. 144:4, Adam, for a Hebel, a breath. I love my life, leave me alone, for all my days are Hebel, a breath. When I labor as Hebel, you can see these are all bad, and all is vanity. And I just know from having done this before, I don't know why I didn't pull this one up, but I'll pull it up. If we look at Ecclesiastes 1, the words of and this is really weird that this is what looks like a feminine participle, but it has to be masculine because it's a son of David. But why is that a feminine looking logos listed as masculine? If we pull up logos, and I think we can pull up ACOT here. Let me link this together so it will scroll. Yeah, they're listing it as masculine too. I don't know why it has. Yeah, I mean, this is Halot says participle call feminine. So I don't know. We'll talk about that another day. But notice here 1:2 Hebel of Hebels, says the Kohelet. Hebel of Hebels, all is Hebel. Well, that's our word. Abel, vanity of vanities, all is vanity, and we could continue through Ecclesiastes, and so it raises the question when you're an interpreter, and you're trying to say, well, like what exactly is Abel's offering and Cain's offering, and why is one accepted? I think until you wrestle with why is it that Eve is calling one son virtually God's gift, and the other one she's naming the nothing, the worthlessness, the vanity, the false image, and yet it's Abel who comes with the offering provided by God. In his own estimation, he's nothing, but he's coming with the provision that God's made, and God accepts him. I don't think you can wrestle rightly with why the offering of Abel is accepted and Cain's isn't until you realize the enormous implication of the name. And so Abel's an illustration of the meanings of the names may be very important. If we look at two possible others, if we look at, for instance, the word Sinai, you might say, well, what does Sinai mean? And what was that verse? 16:1. Exodus 16:1. When we come to this word, to the wilderness of sin, and then Sinai, like, what does that word mean? Well, I mean, the easiest thing is like search for where it appears, where the root appears. And for some reason, that did not do what I wanted it to do. Search for the root. Yeah, so not really sure why it pulled up SF. It wasn't really what I was looking for. It's doing the English thing. That's not what I wanted it to do. Well, we can do this the other way. You saw what the word looked like in Hebrew, and if we go to Exodus 3, we come to the word in the midst of the sineh, the bush, and you can see in the Septuagint it says thorn bush. So is it just a regular bush or is it a thorn bush? I have a little bit better tools in Logos, and so if we do that same thing in Logos, we come to 3, and here's our word. We can do our word study on Sineh, and you can see that we've got briar, thorny shrub, thorn bush, blackberry bush, bramble. So it's clear that this should be translated thorn bush. That's true of the Hebrew, and if we go to the standard lexica in Greek, you can see the same. Here, I'll take myself out of the way. You can see the same thing is true there. And so Sinai and Sineh, you can hear that play on words, the same as Cain and Cain. So I think we should think of this as something like Thorn Mountain. Of course, the other name of Thorn Mountain is Mount Horeb, which means something like Mount Destruction. Well, if you take time to look up the meaning of the name, and you, as an intelligent reader, you have to ask the question, well, if God appears in the midst of a thorn bush, thorns are not part of original creation. They're a result of the fall. And why would God get inside thorns at Mount Sinai, which, I mean, you could argue means something like my thorns? And he's talking about bringing the people back to the land flowing with milk and honey. But why would God do that? And then you realize that God made a promise. He got in the middle of thorns, and to make that promise good, he got into thorns a second time. There's a meta-narrative, plot symmetrical, biblical, theological unity. And unless you take time to look up the names and to try to figure out what's going on, it seems like some of that artistry you might miss. A very last one is we might look at Genesis 22, and God tells Abraham, go out to Mount Moriah. Let's see, take your son, your only son, your agapetos son, mimicking what God the Father says of Jesus at his baptism, the same words in the same order, just take your son where that one is my son. Go to, and then here's our word, Moriah, and offer him there. Of course, the only place that word appears is in this text, and also I think it's 2 Chronicles 3, 2 Chronicles 3:1, where Solomon built house of the Lord. The rabbinic interpretation is that that's clearly somewhere near Jerusalem. But what does Moriah mean? So we could do the Bible word study, and you can see different things chosen by the Lord: rebellion, high. When we look at the roots, there's, if it's from ra'ah, more ra'ah, cause to appear, something like that. If we do more, you can see mirror observation. If you go to biblical names to get some help, I have a book here that talks about biblical names. I know that a common suggestion is bitterness, the bitterness of the Lord. When I look at this word Moriah, I think of that text where in Ruth, where Naomi, whose name means my pleasant one, she says, don't call me Naomi anymore, my pleasant one, call me Mara, because the Lord has made my life mar. It's possible that you have some kind of bitterness of the Lord. And it is possible, too, that you have a double entendre where it is the bitterness of the Lord, certainly the future reference to the sacrifice of Jesus, and that to redeem people and bring them back to the Garden of Eden, it took God coming up with a way to overcome his own feeling in having his son suffer to bring humanity back in. Looking up the meaning of names is important. It's a fruitful venture. It's not an easy venture. We're separated from the writing of these texts. Some texts, 3,500 years separation. We're not from the original culture. It can be difficult. There can be debated things, but it is important to try to look up the meaning of words. And so one of the really helpful things you can do is when you come to any text and it gives you a name, try to figure out what that name means. We live in a great age where we have these fantastic tools. And so I commend it to you. Listen, as always, I hope God will continue to bless you, and I will look forward to talking to you next time.